Have you ever noticed how two people can walk into the same room, say almost nothing, and yet receive completely different reactions? One is welcomed with attention, admiration, and respect. The other is overlooked, interrupted, or dismissed. Most people assume the difference is luck, appearance, or popularity. It isn't. The difference lies in one invisible force that shapes every human interaction, perceived value. The uncomfortable truth is that people rarely judge you by who you truly are. They judge you by the signals you consistently send. Before anyone knows your intelligence, your kindness, or your character, they have already formed an opinion based on your presence, your confidence, your emotional stability, and the way you carry yourself. Human beings make rapid decisions because their minds are designed to search for patterns. They ask one silent question: how valuable is this person? The answer to that question determines how they respond. This is why chasing respect almost always produces the opposite result. The harder you try to convince people that you deserve attention, the less valuable you appear. Value is never announced. It is demonstrated. The person who constantly explains their worth unknowingly communicates doubt. The person who quietly lives their principles communicates certainty. Think about the people you naturally admire. Chances are they don't spend their time proving themselves to everyone around them. They don't desperately seek approval. They don't change their personality to fit every room they enter. Instead, they possess something far more powerful. They have inner certainty. They know who they are, whether the crowd applauds them or ignores them. That certainty changes everything. It affects your posture, your voice, your decisions, your patience, and even your silence. When you know your value, you stop negotiating for acceptance. You stop fearing rejection because your identity no longer depends on someone else's opinion. Ironically, that is the very moment people begin to respect you. Too many people make the mistake of believing that being nice automatically earns respect. Kindness is a beautiful quality, but kindness without confidence is often mistaken for weakness. Generosity without boundaries becomes permission for others to take advantage of you. Respect begins with one simple message you send to the world: I value myself enough that I don't need to beg for your validation. Remember, perception is created through consistency. Every promise you keep to yourself raises your internal value. Every time you maintain your standards instead of compromising them for temporary approval, you strengthen your identity. Every difficult conversation you face, instead of avoiding it, tells the world that your principles are not for sale. This isn't about becoming arrogant or treating others as inferior. Real value never needs arrogance. Insecurity is loud because it craves recognition. Confidence is quiet because it already knows its worth. The strongest presence in any room is often the person who doesn't compete for attention. They simply embody excellence, and others naturally notice from this moment forward. Stop asking yourself, how do I make people respect me? Ask a far more powerful question: what am I communicating every single day about my own value? Because people will almost always mirror the standards you set for yourself long before they ever listen to the words you speak. And once you understand that respect begins with the value you project, you will never waste another day chasing what you have the power to create. Now that you understand that respect begins with the value you project, the next lesson is even more difficult to accept because it goes against everything most people have been taught. We live in a world that encourages us to chase opportunities, chase relationships, chase recognition, and even chase approval. But there is a hidden psychological truth that quietly shapes every human interaction. The more desperately you pursue something, the less valuable you appear. People are naturally drawn to what seems secure, purposeful, and emotionally independent. They are not attracted to desperation. They are attracted to confidence. When someone constantly seeks attention, sends endless messages, always makes themselves available, or rearranges their entire life to please others, they unintentionally communicate one message: my happiness depends on your response. That message weakens your position before you even realize it. Think about the strongest people you have ever met. They care deeply about others, but they are not controlled by others. They invest in relationships, yet they never lose themselves inside them. They are present, but they are not constantly chasing. They understand that real influence comes from having a meaningful life of your own. Scarcity has always increased value. This is true in business, in leadership, and in human psychology. What is always available is often taken for granted. What is rare captures attention. This does not mean playing childish games or pretending to ignore people to manipulate them. It means building a life so rich with purpose that your attention becomes something valuable because it is given intentionally, not desperately. Imagine waking up every morning focused on becoming stronger, wiser, healthier, and more capable. Your energy shifts. Instead of wondering who has texted you back, you are asking yourself how you can improve today. Instead of worrying about who is noticing you, you become consumed with creating something worth noticing. This change is subtle, but its effects are extraordinary. When your purpose becomes greater than your need for approval, people begin to feel your presence differently. You stop speaking just to fill silence. You stop explaining yourself to those determined to misunderstand you. You stop forcing connections that were never meant to last. Suddenly, conversations become more meaningful because every word carries intention instead of insecurity. Emotional independence is one of the rarest forms of strength. It doesn't mean becoming cold or distant. It means refusing to let your emotional state be controlled by someone else's opinions, attention, or validation. When compliments come, you appreciate them without depending on them. When criticism comes, you evaluate it without allowing it to define you. Your peace belongs to you. There is incredible power in patience. Many people destroy opportunities because they cannot tolerate uncertainty. They rush to explain, to apologize, to convince, or to force outcomes. But patience communicates confidence. It tells the world that you trust your own value enough to let the right people and the right opportunities reveal themselves in time. As you continue building this mindset, you will notice something remarkable. The less you chase respect, the more naturally it appears. The less you seek validation, the more genuine appreciation you receive. Not because you have become someone different, but because you have finally stopped giving away your power. The moment your purpose becomes stronger than your need to be chosen is the moment others begin to recognize the value that was always within you. As you stop chasing approval and begin building a life rooted in purpose, another transformation becomes essential. It is not enough to know your value if your emotions can still be controlled by every opinion, insult, or disappointment that crosses your path. The greatest form of personal power is not the ability to control other people, it is the ability to control yourself. That is the level where true respect begins to take root. Most people spend their lives reacting instead of responding. Someone criticizes them, and they immediately become defensive. Someone ignores them, and they spend hours wondering what they did wrong. Or someone disrespects them, and they rush into an argument to prove a point. They believe they are defending themselves, but in reality, they are handing over control of their emotions. The moment another person can dictate how you feel, think, or behave, they hold more power over you than you realize. The strongest individuals understand a different principle. They know that every emotional reaction sends a message. Panic communicates uncertainty. Anger without control communicates insecurity. Constant defensiveness communicates self-doubt. Calmness, on the other hand, communicates confidence. It tells everyone around you that your identity is not fragile enough to be shaken by every challenge. Think about a mountain standing against a violent storm. The wind howls. The rain falls. The thunder shakes the sky. Yet the mountain remains exactly where it is. It does not argue with the storm. It does not fight every gust of wind. It simply stands firm because its strength comes from deep foundations. Your mind should become like that mountain. Life will always bring criticism, rejection, misunderstandings, and difficult people. The goal is not to eliminate the storm. The goal is to become so grounded that the storm no longer controls you. One of the most underestimated forms of strength is silence. We often feel pressured to respond immediately, to defend ourselves, or to have the last word. But not every accusation deserves an answer. Not every insult deserves your attention. Sometimes silence speaks with greater authority than 100 carefully chosen words. It demonstrates that your confidence is too secure to be pulled into unnecessary battles. This does not mean suppressing your emotions or pretending they do not exist. Every human being feels frustration, disappointment, fear, and anger. The difference lies in what you do with those emotions. Weakness reacts instantly. Strength pauses. It observes. It thinks. It chooses the response that serves its long-term purpose instead of satisfying a short-term impulse. Imagine how different your life would become if every difficult conversation began with one deep breath instead of one emotional outburst. Imagine refusing to let a careless comment ruin your entire day. Imagine facing rejection and seeing it not as proof of your inadequacy, but as redirection towards something better. That shift alone changes your relationships, your career, and your confidence. People naturally trust those who remain composed under pressure. Leaders earn loyalty not because they never face problems, but because they remain steady while others panic. Families feel safe around people who bring peace instead of chaos. Opportunities often find those who can think clearly when everyone else is overwhelmed. Emotional discipline quietly becomes your greatest advantage. Remember, every challenge life places before you is also revealing something about you. It exposes your habits, your fears, and your level of self-mastery. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" begin asking, "What is this moment teaching me about myself?" That single question transforms obstacles into opportunities for growth. When you master your emotions, you stop becoming predictable. Manipulative people lose their influence because they can no longer provoke the reaction they expect. Negative people lose their satisfaction because your peace is no longer available for them to steal. You become someone who chooses responses based on wisdom instead of impulse, and that quiet self-control becomes impossible to ignore. The person who rules their own emotions will always possess a power that no one else can take away. Once you have learned to protect your value, stop chasing approval, and master your emotions, there is one final element that separates temporary confidence from lasting respect. It is competence. Confidence may capture attention for a moment, but competence keeps it. The world eventually stops listening to promises and starts paying attention to results. If you truly want respect that cannot be taken away, become so capable that your work speaks before you ever have to. Many people spend years trying to look successful instead of becoming successful. They invest more energy in appearing confident than in developing the skills that create genuine confidence. They want recognition before they have earned mastery, but life has a way of exposing empty words. Titles fade, popularity changes, opinions shift. What remains is your ability to produce value wherever you go. Ask yourself this question: if your reputation disappeared tomorrow, what skills would still make people seek you out? That question reveals the difference between borrowed status and real value. Borrowed status depends on outside approval. Real value comes from becoming someone whose knowledge, discipline, and character consistently solve problems. Every successful person understands something that most people overlook. They spend far more time improving themselves than promoting themselves. While others are distracted by comparison, they are quietly learning. While others complain about unfair circumstances, they are sharpening their abilities. While others wait for opportunities, they prepare themselves so thoroughly that when opportunity finally arrives, they are ready. Mastery is never built in dramatic moments. It is built in ordinary days that nobody applauds. It is created every time you wake up and choose discipline over comfort. Every book you read, every skill you practice, every mistake you analyze, and every challenge you embrace becomes another brick in the foundation of your future. The world only sees the finished building, but they rarely notice the years spent laying each brick. There is something incredibly powerful about becoming indispensable. This does not mean making yourself impossible to replace through endless hard work alone. It means developing qualities that are increasingly rare. Become the person who keeps their word. Become the person who remains calm under pressure. Become the person who solves problems instead of creating them. Become the person who continues learning long after everyone else believes they know enough. Those qualities never go out of style. Remember, excellence attracts attention without demanding it. Think about the craftsman whose work is flawless, the athlete who trains before sunrise while others are still asleep, the entrepreneur who studies failures more carefully than successes, the teacher whose wisdom changes lives long after the lesson ends. None of these individuals earn lasting respect because they ask for it. They earn it because excellence leaves people with no choice but to acknowledge it. Too many people underestimate the compound effect of daily improvement. They look for dramatic transformations and overlook the extraordinary power of becoming just a little better every single day. Small improvements accumulate. One new habit becomes a stronger mindset. One stronger mindset becomes better decisions. Better decisions become better opportunities. Eventually, people call it success, never realizing it was built through countless invisible choices. There will always be someone with more talent, more resources, or more advantages than you. But there will never be another person capable of matching your unique combination of discipline, persistence, and commitment if you refuse to quit. That is where true confidence is born. Not from believing you are the best, but from knowing you are becoming better than you were yesterday. As your confidence grows, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop needing constant reassurance because your preparation gives you certainty. You stop fearing competition because you are competing with your previous self. You stop seeking recognition because your results naturally create it. Respect is no longer something you pursue. It becomes the inevitable response to the value you consistently deliver. When your commitment to mastery becomes greater than your desire for recognition, respect becomes a consequence instead of a goal. As your competence grows and your confidence is no longer dependent on the opinions of others, you reach a moment that defines the quality of every relationship in your life. It is the moment when you must decide what you will tolerate and what you will no longer accept. This is where boundaries become more than rules. They become a declaration of self-respect. People do not learn how to treat you by listening to your words. They learn by watching what you allow. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that respect is built by endless patience. They convince themselves that if they stay quiet long enough, if they continue giving, forgiving, sacrificing, and accommodating, eventually people will appreciate them. But human psychology often works differently. What is repeatedly tolerated slowly becomes expected. Every time you excuse disrespect without addressing it, you silently teach others that your limits can be ignored. Think about that for a moment. Every interaction is a lesson. Every time you say yes when your heart is screaming no, you send a message. Every time you allow someone to interrupt your peace, break their promises, or manipulate your kindness without consequence, you reinforce a pattern. The world is always observing what you protect and what you surrender. If you refuse to protect your dignity, do not be surprised when others fail to protect it as well. Setting boundaries does not require anger. It does not require harsh words or dramatic confrontations. The strongest boundaries are often the calmest ones. They are spoken with clarity, enforced with consistency, and never used as threats. A person who truly values themselves does not need to raise their voice to be heard. Their actions speak louder than any emotional reaction ever could. Many people fear boundaries because they are afraid of losing relationships. They worry that saying no will disappoint someone, that walking away will make them appear selfish, or that refusing disrespect will leave them alone. But ask yourself this question: what is the cost of constantly abandoning yourself just to keep someone else comfortable? Every time you betray your own values to gain temporary acceptance, you pay with your confidence, your peace, and eventually your identity. There is a difference between being kind and being available for exploitation. Kindness is a strength because it comes from choice. People-pleasing is a weakness because it comes from fear. One is driven by generosity. The other is driven by the desperate hope of being accepted. The moment your kindness is motivated by fear instead of purpose, it stops being a gift and becomes a burden. The people who genuinely belong in your life will not resent healthy boundaries. In fact, they will respect them. They understand that someone who values themselves is also capable of valuing others. It is often the people who benefit from your lack of boundaries who become uncomfortable when you finally begin enforcing them. Do not mistake their discomfort for evidence that you are doing something wrong. Sometimes resistance is simply proof that unhealthy patterns are being broken. There will be moments when walking away is more powerful than winning an argument. There will be conversations that do not deserve another explanation. There will be doors that must remain closed because reopening them only invites the same disrespect back into your life. Strength is not always found in holding on. Sometimes the greatest act of courage is choosing to let go with peace instead of resentment. As you continue this journey, remember that boundaries are not walls built to keep everyone out. They are gates that allow the right people in while protecting you from those who repeatedly disregard your worth. They preserve your energy for relationships built on mutual respect instead of constant negotiation. They remind you that your time, your attention, and your peace are among the most valuable resources you possess. The day you stop negotiating your self-respect is the day the world begins to recognize that it is no longer available for compromise. Now, everything we have explored leads to one final truth. Protecting your value, refusing to chase approval, mastering your emotions, developing real competence, and setting firm boundaries are not separate ideas. Together, they shape the person you become. And in the end, people do not remember every word you say, they remember how your presence made them feel. The ultimate goal is not to demand respect. It is to become someone whose character naturally commands it the moment you walk into a room. There is a quiet power that cannot be purchased, copied, or faked. It comes from living in complete alignment with your values. When your thoughts, your words, and your actions all move in the same direction, you develop an authenticity that people instinctively recognize. You no longer wear different masks for different audiences. You are the same person whether you stand before a crowd, sit across from a stranger, or spend time alone with your own thoughts. That consistency becomes your greatest strength. Most people spend their lives trying to create an impressive image. They carefully manage appearances, hoping others will see them as successful, confident, or important. But images are fragile. They require constant maintenance because they are built on perception rather than substance. Character is different. Character grows stronger every time you choose integrity over convenience, discipline over comfort, and purpose over distraction. Eventually, your reputation becomes a reflection of your daily habits rather than your public performance. Imagine entering every room without wondering who likes you. Imagine speaking without needing to impress anyone. Imagine making decisions based on your principles instead of your fears. That kind of freedom changes everything. You stop wasting energy trying to become acceptable to everyone because you understand a simple truth. If you stand for something meaningful, not everyone will agree with you, and that is perfectly fine. There is remarkable confidence in saying less and meaning more. The loudest voice is rarely the strongest one. People who constantly seek attention often reveal an inner emptiness they are trying to hide. But the person who listens carefully, observes patiently, and speaks with intention creates an entirely different kind of influence. Their words carry weight because they are not wasted. Their silence creates curiosity because it is filled with confidence rather than insecurity. Purpose also transforms your presence. When you wake up every morning with a mission greater than your ego, small conflicts lose their importance. Petty arguments no longer deserve your attention. The opinions of people who do not share your values lose their power over your emotions. You become focused on building a meaningful life instead of proving yourself in meaningless battles. That focus becomes visible. People notice it even if they cannot explain why. Never forget that your habits are shaping the person the world meets tomorrow. Every disciplined choice strengthens your identity. Every promise you keep to yourself builds trust within yourself. Every challenge you face with courage adds another layer to your character. Over time, these seemingly ordinary decisions create an extraordinary presence. Others begin to respect you not because you demanded recognition, but because your consistency leaves no room for doubt. The most influential people are rarely obsessed with influence itself. They are obsessed with growth. They continue learning when others become complacent. They remain humble while becoming stronger. They serve without seeking applause. They lead without forcing obedience. Their confidence comes from knowing they are living according to principles that cannot be shaken by trends, criticism, or temporary setbacks. So, as you leave this message behind and return to your own life, remember that respect is never built in one dramatic moment. It is earned in thousands of quiet decisions that nobody sees. It is forged in the mornings when you choose discipline over excuses, in the conversations where you protect your dignity without losing your kindness, and in the moments when you remain calm while everyone else is controlled by emotion. Day after day, choice after choice, you become the person you once admired from a distance. Become so grounded in your purpose, so disciplined in your actions, and so certain of your worth that respect follows you wherever you go, and let your life become the proof that true power never has to announce itself.